One. Hi, my name is Doris Pollock.
And I'm John Huber. We've written a book, Discovering Art, and made some videos about it. And a viewer might ask, what are your credentials? What makes you an expert?
Well, if truth be told, we do not have any academic art credentials at all.
But during the pandemic shutdown of 2020, we came across Dr. Richard Battelle, and we became great fans of his.
And he was the lecturer for the art videos given by the Great Courses. We enjoyed them so much. We watched almost 100 hours of lectures.
There are 3 full courses altogether. Battelle championed the idea that art should be fun, that art should be enjoyable, and furthermore, that your opinion is valid. It's not just the expert's opinion.
Dr. Battelle has written many books, but none of them really elaborated his style of teaching. And now, unfortunately, he's deceased, so there won't be any more books.
We contacted his widow and his colleagues, and they're not planning on publishing any books about his techniques either. So we decided to do it ourselves.
And our second credential for writing this book and to talking about art is that John and I have been to 67 art museums around the world. And we know art.
And that's over a period of 60 years.
Yes.
Doris, let's talk about the highlights of your museums and artworks. What was your first museum?
The first major museum that I ever went to for art was the Philadelphia Art Museum. I just graduated from college and I was in Philadelphia studying music. And I had free time and I went to the Philadelphia Art Museum almost every week. And right across the street from that museum is the Rodin Museum, so I fell in love with all the sculpture too. It was a wonderful time.
What was your favorite artwork?
Well, I liked a lot of them, but the one that I went to every week when I got there was Picasso's Three Musicians, and I still like it.
And what about at the Rodin?
The Gates of Hell. You know there are only 2 of those in the world. There are lots of Thinkers and lots of the other things that he did, but only 2 of these, and you and I have seen them both. One in Paris and one in Philadelphia.
We can't talk about all 67 of the museums that you've explored. They range from Russia to Europe to America and all the way to China.
If you would like to know about the other museums that we have gone to, out of the 67, all you have to do is look in our book and you will see a list of them.
Let's start with the easternmost museums, the Hermitage in St. Petersburg, Russia.
The only word that you can think about for that museum is absolutely wow. It is the 2nd largest museum in the world, and it is grand. The building itself is grand, lots and lots of gold everywhere you look, but the paintings are incredible. I saw more Picassos there than I did in almost any other place that I had been, and I loved everything that I saw. Catherine the Great had started the museum and had, I think we can give her credit for finding a lot and putting the money aside to build a big library.
Of all of the 18 museums that you visited in Europe, which are your favorites?
Well, it's hard to pick a favorite, but John and I both really love the small art from the Netherlands, so Amsterdam would be a big contender. And the Rijksmuseum there is huge, and of course it has all the Vermeer, so I love that. But I love the Uffizi in Florence, and we just got back recently from Paris, so you can't discount any of the things that we saw there. They were truly amazing, and I loved all of them there.
Did you have any particular favorite works of art?
Oh, David, yes. David was certainly one of my favorites. It's hard not to consider something that monumental not to be afraid favorite. 17 feet tall and almost a sanctuary kind of place in the academia. And it was quite the experience. And I was so glad I've gotten to see him 3 times. It was wonderful.
My favorite museum was the d'Orsay. It had a huge collection of sculpture and of paintings. And there was a lot of sculpture I had no idea was in existence. So it was a real adventure of discovery.
I think we felt like we were kids in a candy store and, oh look. It was so good.
Moving westward, of all the 40 museums you've explored in America, which of those are your favorites?
America has wonderful museums. Not saying that all of them are wonderful, because we've been in some that were mediocre, but the big museums here are just truly wonderful. I'm talking New York. I'm talking Boston. I'm talking Chicago, and of course, Los Angeles, California. We have spent time in each of those places and loved every minute of it. If I had to pick a museum, I guess I'd have to go with the Museum of Modern Art, the MoMA, in New York City. There's nothing in that place that I don't just love. And it's really... Chicago has an excellent museum, and my favorite piece there that I keep going back to over and over again is Gustave Cabotte, The Rainy Day in Paris. How anybody could paint a pavement with that slick rain and make it look like you're going to slip and fall on it. It's so real. It's just beyond me. And it was great. And when I was in there, in that museum, a docent came by with her little group, and I heard her say that that is their iconic piece, and that a lot of people come into the museum just to see that piece, and then they leave and don't see the rest of it. I guess it's kind of like going to the Louvre and just seeing the Mona Lisa and not looking at the rest of the art. So.
I think of all the museums in America that we've been to, I like the Getty the best. It's such a beautiful setting on a hilltop overlooking the ocean. But it was there that I first saw Renoir's The Promenade. And it was so sparkly, so intense, so vivid. It outshone any photographs or prints that I've seen of it. And it proved to me, once and for all, that visiting a museum is a unique experience. Which museums would you like to return to, or which ones have you returned to?
Well, since I've been to Europe a few times, I've always gone back to the Louvre and back to the ones that I really love in Paris and in Italy. But I think the one that I like to go back to the most is Uffizi. The first time I saw it, when I was in Florence, it must have been 2004, something like that, 4 or 5, and I remember standing before the Botticellis and just wanting to weep. It was so amazing to finally get to see the beautiful colors, and it just was almost overwhelming. I also wanted to weep because I knew I'd probably never see it again, but life is its own mystery, and I've gotten to see it three times and have really enjoyed it. There's also the Pitti Palace in Florence that I like. And it's just like going into someone's home, but there are all these famous things there, and it's really wonderful.
You've talked about big museums so far. How about little museums? Are there any choice ones?
Well, when we were in Paris not too long ago, one of the museums that we went to was about an hour and a half east of Paris, and it was the Museum of Camille Claudel. If you're not familiar with who she was a sculptor who learned from Rodin. Well, she learned a lot of things from Rodin because she fell in love with him. She was his mistress and his absolute best student. Her work is really quite good. And we enjoyed that. There's not much left of her work because she was mentally ill and one night just snapped and destroyed most of her work. There are only 92 or so pieces left, and we've got to see, I guess, everything that was on display at her museum and also at Rodin's museum, and we like that. We also have a museum close to us here in Texas that we like a lot. It's called the Museum of Western Art, and it's just quite an experience. It's in Kerrville, Texas, and if you ever get close to it, you probably want to stop. And if you're not going to do that, you probably ought to at least look it up and see what paintings they have there. They're vivid, they're colorful, they're meaningful, not to just Texans, but to other people too. Really beautiful. Oh, the Jordan Schnitzer. We really loved that. We were in Eugene, Oregon at a jazz seminar for a week, and we were told that on one afternoon we'd be spending it on the University of Oregon campus, which made me happy because I wanted to see that. And I didn't know very much about the art museum, but oh, what a jewel it was. And we really enjoyed that. One of the pieces that we saw, because they were having a Chinese art festival, was by Hung Liu, and it was called The White Rice Bowl. And we just stood in front of it and just took in the beauty. It was beautiful.
It was really moving. Mm-hmm. To get back to the Camille Claudel Museum, she had a particular sculpture that I find very moving. It's a man and a woman dancing. It's called The Waltz. And they had that sculpture done in 4 different media. It was there in bronze, marble, bluestone, and terracotta. And it was lovely to see how just a different material caused a different reaction in the viewer. Well, this has been a brief overview of our credentials. We hope you found them convincing.
And if you did, we certainly hope that you would take the time to go to Amazon.com and purchase our book. We had fun writing it. It was fun to revisit a lot of the places that we had been and to write about them. And it's called Discovering Art. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Goodbye.